Welcome, this is Jennifer McGuire. In today's video, I'm going to give you a close look at the new inks from Altenew and also give you some tips for stamp layering as we create a few cards. Now, I do want to start out by saying that I know there are a lot of wonderful inks out there. I've done many videos on different inks that I like for various reasons. And I know a lot of people feel overwhelmed by so many good choices. But here's the thing, I think it's great that we have so many good options. You can look at the different options and decide what is most important to you, what type of ink is most important to you, what properties are most important to you, and then choose the ink that works for you. So I think it's a great thing that we have so many options instead of not having enough to choose from. So today's ink is another great ink line. I was really excited to see these, and they have some special properties, and I'll talk about those, and you can decide if this is something that is important for you. So let's start by taking a closer look at these inks. This is the Altenew Crisp ink line. There are 12 inks in the collection right now, but they will be adding more colors in the future. These are a water-based dye ink. You can see the shape of the ink pad is a little bit different than other inks, but there are a few other differences from other dye inks. When you stamp these, they're pretty crisp and solid right from the get-go, which is a beneficial thing because some dye inks kind of fade as they dry, which is okay. You just need to know that what color you get right at the beginning isn't exactly what you'll get in the end. But usually dye inks give you very crisp results, and these definitely do. Now, what sets these inks apart from other inks is that they're in collections of 4. So there is a light, medium, dark, and super dark of the pinks. Then there is the same for the yellow and the same for the green, and they'll be adding more in the future. Now, what is great about having 4 colors that go together from light to dark is it takes the guesswork out when you want to do stamp layering or an ombre effect or make sure things match up. So these inks are great for that. They're great alone too. I mean, that buttercream and that warm sunshine are beautiful colors. You don't have to use them together, but it's great that you can. Now, these ink pads come in the full size. You can also get the mini cubes of the ink pads in the sets of 4 that go together, which I think is fantastic too. So if you're unsure about taking the dive into the full ink pads, you can get the minis. You will see me using these inks a lot, especially because they work well with other inks that I use, like the Hero Art Shadow inks or the Simon Says Stamp inks. They really work well with those, so it just gives me another color option. Now let's go ahead and stamp the inks because I want you to see what it looks like when you immediately stamp it. So on the left is a sample of the Coral Berry I stamped a few days ago. And here it is when you first stamp it right away. And you can see the color doesn't change a whole lot. Some inks kind of lighten as they dry, which is fine. You just have to be prepared for it. And these don't. What you get right away is very close to what you get in the long run, which is a very good thing. And they stamp very solid, which is fantastic. They dry immediately, so these don't really work for heat embossing, but they're great for other techniques. I will say on my first impression, these inks remind me a lot of the wonderful inks from Lawn Fawn and the new inks from Ranger that dry nice and crisp right away. So these would be a nice addition to those collections. I've done a video on those inks and I'll link to those here. But it's nice to kind of mix colors from different collections together because you can get the colors that you really like. And please remember, there are many great inks out there, but there is absolutely no reason to have them all. You need to decide what properties are most important to you. Do you want a fast drying ink or do you want one that you can heat emboss? Do you want one that dries quickly or are you okay with waiting for your solid image? You need to decide what properties are important for you, and then you can choose what colors you like. Okay, so now that I've talked a little bit about the inks, let's go ahead and dive into these cards, which involve some stamp layering. Now, stamp layering can be intimidating for people, but I assure you that it is a wonderful, wonderful thing to do in your stamping world. It's a great way to create masterpieces with very little effort. So this is the Altenew Vintage Roses. I've used it before, and I will link to a video that I've done with it. Now, it's very important to go over to the Altenew blog, and I'll give you a link, and check out this chart here. This is helpful in determining how to layer up your stamped images, what things stamp on top of each other, and how to line them up. Now, I printed this for creating today, and I printed it in black and white, which is kind of silly, but I will show you because you kind of need those color codes here in the video, but I'll show you how I used it anyways, and this will be very helpful for you. Now, these images that go together in the stamp set are kind of circled on the stamp, and they match up with the combinations that you see on the printout here. I'm actually going to be using the second combination from the top. Now you could stamp from left to right, the images from left to right, layering them, but I actually go from right to left. So I go backwards. I do the solid first. I find that easiest. Now there are these little spots on the computer in the colors that give you a code that these little spots where I'm putting the marks line up with each other. Now it looks a little weird, but you're going to see as I stamp here. I'm going to start with the solid. That's just how I prefer to do it. And that is the lightest color. So this is the lightest pink color that Altenew has. And I'm going to do 2 at a time. With stamp layering, I definitely think it's worth doing a bunch of them at once because you can do the layering all at the same time. Now I'm going to the next image and I want to line up those black spots where I put the marker. And I'm going to do that right with the stamped image. This is the next darkest color. I'm going to stamp that right on top. I have to crop out or edit out some of this here because my head gets in the way of the camera, because you have to go right above the image and look through your stamp to make sure you're lining them up. So you can see I lined up those areas where I did the black pen or marker over on my little printout there. So now I'm going to line up that part with that part on the next image. So I'm going to the second darkest color ink. These colors are just beautiful, by the way. And I'm going to go ahead and line those parts up with my stamping. So I'm going to look right through the stamp and stamp right on top of what I've already done. Now, when I do this, you'll notice that I didn't do it perfectly. I didn't line up perfectly, and that is totally fine. You'll see in the end, this still looks like a rose, and it still looks beautiful, and it's better than anything I could have drawn myself, so I'm okay with it. So don't feel like it has to be absolutely perfect. Okay, for the last one, I need to line up that little part on the bottom, and I'll be using the darkest red for this. I think this is called Grapevine, and I'll stamp that right on top of the others, lining up that little part on the bottom. Keep in mind you can go in the other direction if that is better for you. It really just depends on the individual. And by the way, if you're finding that this chart doesn't help you a whole lot and you're still kind of confused on how to line up and layer these images, go to Google and do a search on Altenew Vintage Roses or whatever stamp set you're using, and a bunch of images will pop up. And you can use those kind of as a guide. Check out other cards people have done, and you can use those as a guide for how to layer these stamped images or what color combinations to use. So I went ahead and did these with the pink roses, as you saw, and then I also used the yellow colors from Altenew to create 2 yellow roses also. And in my other video where I used this stamp set, I used the Misty Stamping Tool, which is a stamp positioning tool that's incredible. That's really helpful with this stamp set or stamp sets like this, so be sure to check that out if you haven't already. Next, I'm going to do the leaves. They also cluster the leaves together on the stamp set so you know which ones layer on top of each other. The leaves are a little more obvious to figure out how to layer them. I'm going to do more leaves than I need here because I'm not really sure how many I want to use. So I'm doing the bottom base of the leaves with the lightest green. Now I'm going on with the medium green on top of that, and then the darkest green on top of that. And quickly you'll see how beautiful these little leaves are with all this layering. Now I should say in the Altenew Crisp Ink collection, there are the 3 greens, and then the darkest green is actually a black ink. But really 3 is all you need with the leaves because they're so small. Now I picked another cluster of leaves, and I'll be doing the stamp layering with those also, so that I have 2 different types of leaves to add to my cards. It's important to remember that although it takes more time to do stamping when you're using a stamp layering set like this one, you do save time in that you don't have to add color afterwards. Okay, so let's go ahead and start putting this card together. I'm going to use the matching dies from Altenew for the Vintage Roses. They recently came out with the matching die sets, and I think it's very helpful. If you want to save a little money, you could skip the die sets and just cut them out by hand. I wanted to show you that these cut up very close to the edge of the roses, which I really like because I don't like a huge white trim around my stamped images. So this cuts up very close, and you can see how beautiful it looks. After cutting out all of the roses and leaves, it's time to put our cards together. I decided I wanted to have a lot of white space in the back of my card. However, I wanted some depth to it, some interest, so I decided to use embossing folders. I'm using some new embossing folders from We Are Memory Keepers that are amazing. They're called Next Level, and these are different than other embossing folders in that it doesn't just give a raised area and a flat area, but it gives a lot in between. So it really kind of gives this great dimension to your cardstock. And you can put your cardstock in either horizontal or vertical because this is a 6x6 embossing folder. Now I run these through my Big Shot a little bit different. I put the multi-purpose platform closed. I put the embossing folder on top and then 1 cutting plate on top. I don't put it through as I normally do embossing folders because I felt it was too much pressure, but I encourage you to try whatever works best with your machine. I'm sure there's a way that you can do it, and you can run it through how you normally do embossing folders, but I felt this gave better results. Now this one here, this is another example. This is a basket weave embossing folder from We Are Memory Keepers. I just wanted to show it to you. I didn't use it on my card, but this really demonstrates the amount of depth that you get from these folders, and it's very different than other folders I've seen. Again, I put it on the top of my multi-purpose platform, or if you have the magnetic platform, just put it on top of that. Then just put one of the cutting plates on top and check out the dimension you get with this. It's just beautiful. I mean, this is completely different than any embossing folders I have. So I'm just using the triangle ones for my card today. I trimmed the panel down to 4 inches by 5 1/4. And I put some adhesive on the bottom right corner. I'm going to put a piece of gray cardstock along one of the diagonal lines so that I can have the corner be gray on this piece. Now I'm going to flip it over and cut the excess away from this. Now I just kind of followed the pattern in the background, and I think that's kind of fun to have a diagonal element to your card. I seem to always make my cards vertical or horizontal elements. I think it's fun to have something that is actually diagonal instead. I decided to put my sentiment along the diagonal too. I have this great stamp set from Altenew. It's an older one, but it has a ton of sentiments on it, and I really like it because it's everything from welcome baby to congrats to I'm here for you, I miss you. It's one of those stamp sets that you can reach for often, and the sentiments are small, which is great because you can fit them into tight places. I have black cardstock here. I'm going to stamp with my Versamark ink right up against the edge. Add some white embossing powder and heat set that. Then I can take this to my trimmer and cut from the other side, and I end up with a nice thin strip that perfectly fits the sentiment that I have. Now this strip is longer than I need so that I can position it where I want on our little card here. So I'm going to just kind of plan where I want this. I want it towards the bottom so I have room for my little flower on the top. I did decide I wanted to add a little interest to this, so I cut a very thin strip of glitter cardstock from Die Cuts with a View, and I'm going to adhere that right underneath the black strip, just to add some interest. It's amazing the difference it makes. Now after trimming the excess that's hanging off the edges, I wanted to glue this onto a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch gray cardstock note card, and I put a piece of craft foam underneath it, just so that it has lots of raised dimension to it, and it'll go through the mail nicely. I'm also adding the roses and leaves with tiny pieces of foam tape. Now I don't use fun foam behind these because it's smaller, so it'll survive through the mail if they're just tiny pieces behind there. But whenever I have a large piece, I put complete pieces of craft foam behind it for even raised dimension. So I created a second card with the pink rose, but on that one I put the I am here for you sentiment. And for the yellow card, I did a missing you, and I actually saved the 4th yellow rose for another card. So there you have some tips for doing stamp layering, a look at the Altenew Crisp Inks, and also a way to add some dimension to your white space. If you are interested in the products that I talk about here, I link them all, as always, in my YouTube description below to multiple sources, or you can go over to my blog where I have much more information. And before you go, I had a little message from my 3-year-old Lila that she wanted me to share with you.
Have fun stamping!